Hello there, and welcome to the King's Square Reviews. And this is the final review for Cyberpunk Edgerunners, covering episodes 9 and 10. So if you have not watched my previous reviews of this series, they're in the playlist here. Go ahead and watch those now and dive right into it. Also, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated. The final two episodes of Netflix's Cyberpunk Edgerunners brings the story of David Martinez to a close in a spectacularly gory fashion. From the start, as I've said in my reviews, this was never going to be a story with a happy ending, and Studio Trigger does not shy away from showing just how bad things get in the end. We as the audience are treated to what amounts to an extremely bittersweet ending, one that I feel matches the Cyberpunk TTRPG that the anime is based on, as well as the endings that you can get potentially for Cyberpunk 2077. And overall, I feel that this is a very strong Cyberpunk ending. Now, obviously, at this point, it should go without saying, but just to make sure it's clear, spoilers ahead, so if you have not watched episodes 9 and 10 of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, stop listening to me right now, go and watch those, then come back and listen to my take on things. Now that that's out of the way, the 9th episode of Cyberpunk Edgerunners is titled Humanity, and it picks up with David, Kiwi, Rebecca, and Falco working a job for Faraday, who we know as the audience at this point that Faraday has Lucy in his clutches, and he has switched sides from working for the Militech Corporation to the Arasaka Corporation. The real tragedy of this situation for Lucy is that she went after the Netrunners that Arasaka had hired to find out what was lost amongst Tanaka's information. And her main motivation was to keep David out of their clutches. But by going after these Netrunners, she put a large enough bounty on her head that Faraday, with Kiwi's help, was able to figure out why she was doing what she was doing. And that leads into the trap that Faraday lays out with this convoy job, which is to get David in a situation where everything has gotten so dire that he has to use this experimental cyber skeleton suit that Arasaka has created and unleash him on Militech as a field test of the cyber skeleton. Now, as you can imagine, because this is Cyberpunk and also Cyberpunk Edgerunners, everything goes badly. The trap that David and his group puts together doesn't work out anywhere near as it is planned. Faraday does succeed in getting David to connect to the cyber skeleton, which once it is a hellish piece of armor with anti-gravity thrusters built in to give the user mobility and as well as the ability to attack their surroundings by basically claiming weaponry from the people around them. The downside is anyone who jacks into this frame is going to go full cyber psycho pretty quickly. David, as it's been shown up to this point, was already at the upper limits of his tolerance for cybernetics. The cyber skeleton pushes him over the edge. And the only thing that's keeping him from completely losing it at this point are the heavy drugs that are being constantly administered to him and the revelation that Lucy is being held captive by Faraday in Arasaka Tower. Now, what follows after that is probably one of the most badass scenes of destruction in this anime up to this point, as David proceeds to completely wipe out a significant Militech presence around him, including rocket launcher trucks and heavily armored tanks. He's barely holding on to his sanity, though, but he does manage to take on a small army, which shows the viability of the cyber skeleton, which is what Arasaka wanted at the end. Lucy barely manages to escape Faraday's clutches and make a last-minute call to try and stop David, but unfortunately the timing is not right. David's already in the cyberskeleton setup, which pretty much replaces the majority of his body. It's kind of terrifying to look at when you think about it. But that allows David to refocus his attention on getting her free, which leads into the finale episode, which is entitled My Moon, My Man. And this is a mad dash from the beginning as Falco, Rebecca, and David race through Night City to get to Arasaka Tower. In their way, they have Militech, Arasaka, and Maxtech, in that order, which proved to be no match to David and the crew. It's one of those moments where you feel like they have been built up enough at this point where it doesn't strike you as odd that David, Rebecca, and Falco are able to match all three of these groups at this stage. Meanwhile, you do have another tragic moment, which is when Kiwi goes to meet Faraday to receive her payment for her participation. And for her troubles, Kiwi catches a bullet. I wish I could say I kind of feel bad for Kiwi in this moment, but as a viewer, I really can't. Her betrayal of Lucy, David, Rebecca, and Falco directly leads to the ending that we're about to see. She does manage one moment of redemption when she gives the group the coordinates for the AV that Faraday is using to reach Arasaka, which is what allows the crew to get David on top of it with some truly awesome car stunts that are the definition of death-defying. On a side note here, I just want to say, I have to wonder how Falco's ride withstands the insane amount of damage it takes in those last two episodes. Like, there's the concept of plot armor, and then there's plot armor. And this is a combination of both, because that car should have blown up 10 times over. I digress, but it's still a fun thing to watch, but you have to look at it and go, how is that thing still driving? Anyways, as David and the crew make their way to the tower, the head of Arasaka Counter Intel, which is the espionage department for the mega corporation, has been keeping very close tabs on that situation. And needless to say, they're deeply dissatisfied with how Faraday has bungled this entire operation. They call in Adam Smasher, who we got previewed in episode 7 when David visited his Ripper dock. It turns out in this scene that we find out the cyberskeleton was originally intended for Adam Smasher, and they wanted to use someone like David to test it out to see if it would be viable and then potentially give it off to Adam Smasher. Smasher has nothing but contempt for the device. And in this moment, we really do see just how inhuman Adam Smasher really is. He's haunting, because you look at him and really the only organic part of him is part of his head. The rest of it is this sleek, blocky, chrome cyborg body frame that is very wickedly drawn, and it's directly from Cyberpunk 2077. But it makes him look demonic, which is the intended idea. The final scenes, though, reinforce the idea that Tanaka Sr. laid out for David when they were discussing things with each other in episode 6. For as good as David is as an Edgerunner, and even more so now that he is this dervish of destruction with the cyberskeleton, he's still just a lowly mercenary compared to a mega corporation and the power that one wields, like Arasaka. Once Adam Smasher gets involved, it's a bloodbath from start to finish. Faraday dies in spectacular fashion, falling from the heights of Arasaka Tower, where he had hoped to ascend. David temporarily is able to go toe-to-toe with Adam Smasher, but very quickly learns the difference in experience and just lethality that he has versus Adam Smasher. And it's during the escape, there's this wonderful moment. And it's tragic because it is that one of the final moments these two have. But it's a moment where David has captured Lucy. He's been propelled out of the top of Arasaka Tower. He's falling through the air, clutching Lucy. And it's backdropped against the full moon, just like in episode 4 when they first got together. And you can see David's in the midst of losing it to cyberpsychosis. He's almost gone at this point. Lucy manages to bring him back, but we recognize that it's only a temporary reprieve. The two of them finally have that heart-to-heart talk that they've needed to have for the last 2 episodes, almost 3. And David tells Lucy that his dream is to make sure that she's able to live on the moon like she wants to, so that she doesn't have to run away and keep running and keep hiding. She doesn't have anything else except for her left in his life. Lucy, on the other hand, just wanted David to live, knowing that if he continued down the path that he was taking as an Edgerunner, he was going to meet a violent end like Maine, like Dario, like... I should say Dorio, not Dario. Like so many others, this was the only thing that was going to happen if he continued being an Edgerunner. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens. That violent end follows through as soon as David and Lucy are reunited with Falco and Rebecca. Atom Smasher takes out Rebecca through the dome of an industrial park, killing her instantly. If it wasn't for the fact that David gets in between Smasher and everyone else, Falco and Lucy would have been next. Even in the process, Falco loses a cybernetic arm in this exchange. And again, for all of the enhancements that David has installed over the course of this series and it being in the cyberskeleton, he does not stand a chance against Atom Smasher. The cyborg rips him apart in a matter of seconds, tearing him out of the cyberskeleton and leaving behind a broken husk of a human being. But in that moment, David has won because he's ensured Lucy gets away safely with the money that the group earned from the gig that Faraday set them up in the end of the last episode. And Atom Smasher makes an interesting offer here. He offers to make David a construct, which, if you're not a fan of Cyberpunk 2077, it's kind of a throwaway line, but for those of us that are, this is almost a generous offer on the part of Atom Smasher, because he's acknowledging on some level that David is potentially worthy of some kind of recognition, which David completely shoots down and, for his troubles, gets a bullet to the brain. This is the ending that was always going to happen for David. It was in the opening credits of the series from the very beginning. So it was laid out. He was never going to meet a happy end. At best, he was going to have a violent end. But that leads into the final shot of Edgerunners, which is Lucy on the moon, enjoying a moonwalk, gazing out at the sun, and for the briefest of moments, she sees David as he was at the end of the brain dance they had together in episode 2. That young, happy kid who was just getting a taste of the larger world. And you see how much was lost. You see David as he was back then and as he ended up, and you can't help but feel the lost potential there. Lucy got her wish. She got to get as far away from Arasaka as possible, but it cost her the man that she loved. David fulfilled Lucy's wish to get away, but in the end it cost him everything. I go back to something that Mike Pondsmith the creator of Cyberpunk, the TTRPG, once said, Cyberpunk is not about saving the world, it's about saving yourself. Edgerunners follows that to a T. David was never going to stop Arasaka or Militech or change one aspect of how Night City works in this world. He wasn't going to solve any of the problems that plague this dystopian future. Instead, he ended up doing the one thing that mattered the most to him: saving the woman he loved, even if it cost him his life in the process. Tragedy, in all of its forms, is one of the hallmarks of the cyberpunk genre, and Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a textbook example of how you tell that kind of story with heart, with bombast, and with a tragic ending. So that is it for my reviews of Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Once again, if you like my content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated. Also, I have restarted my Patreon, so if you would like to join up, the link for that will be in the description below, and you'll get early access to stuff like this, as well as exclusive items that I'll be posting only on Patreon. Have yourself a wonderful day.